So the first thing that I want to do is add in the collision detection with the power-up dot within our game. So that's one of the things that we want to add in. When the Pac-Man goes over the dot, he actually gets to eat the dot. So collision detection on the canvas, you have to do quite a bit of calculation, and this is going to be something that's going to take quite a lot of conditional statements. So just looking at probably where the best place to add in this power-up dot is maybe after we've even moved things around. When we've moved our enemy around, we've got all of those calculations. So within here is where we're going to do collision detection. And this is going to be a fairly big if statement, and then of course we're going to have to do one for the ghost as well. So if you are using one of the JavaScript engines, usually they do have this type of stuff built in, because there is a lot of repetitive parts of the code, and if you're doing any kind of shooting, any kind of bullets or something like that, so that does really get complex, because you're going to have a whole bunch of collisions in order to detect. And the only way to detect collisions is to calculate where your player is located, and in this case where our power dot is located. And of course we have to do a -10 on it, or maybe we could do a -5, because that's what our radius of the power dot is. So we have to subtract out half of the radius, because this is a center point. So the X and Y within the arc is a center point, and it goes out 10 from around it. So maybe that was correct, that the radius was 10. So this is detecting to see if players' coordinates are less than the power dot's coordinates, and we also have to check to see if the power dot X is less than the player's X, and here we have to add in 16 again to get that center point, and do another check here to see if the player's Y coordinate is less than or equal to the power dot Y -10. And one more check to see if power dot Y is less than player Y plus 16. And if this is true, then for now we're just going to console log out hit. So hopefully this calculation should create a square area that checks to see if the player and the power dot are within that same spacing. So I'm going to refresh that, and hopefully now when I go over it we get a hit, which it doesn't appear to be doing. So there's something wrong with the calculation. Oh, we did get a hit there. So it is slightly off. So we have to make the actual boundaries a little bit larger. So I'm going to just bring this up to 16. And again, there's always different adjustments that you need to do. So it looked like it was slightly off there. So it's not probably the best position of the power dot. So that looked like it's a little bit better there. There's always tweaking with the calculations. So it looks like it's the boundaries are fairly good. We need to probably adjust a little bit on this side of the dot. So what I can do to make it a little bit larger, increase that boundary. So the issue was coming in from the left-hand side. And actually that. So I ended up updating the code, the calculation. I had to remove out that power dot -10, and then also for X and Y. And now it looks like the hit is more accurate. When I come near the dot, when I'm touching the dot, it gives me a hit. And that's exactly what I want to happen within my code. So whenever I'm touching it, right away I get the hit. And always there is that calculation and working with it, and that's where I usually use console log to help me out with the different calculations and determining when I'm seeing a hit. So now that I've got this hit working, I can continue to write out the code, and I can make something happen once the collision is detected. And one of the things that I want to happen is I want the ghost color to actually change. And again, this is a good reason why we used it all within one PNG file, where I can easily switch over to a different color and use that instead. So what I'm going to do for this power up, I'm going to set that one to false because I don't want to show that anymore. So the power dot is now false, and I'm going to add in a few more objects here within the power dot. So we did have that false there. I want to have a P countdown. And right now I'm going to set that to 0. And another one I want to have is I want to be able to store a value for the old ghost number. So I added in these values, and I'm going to reuse them down over here. So again, I'm going to set a countdown number using power dot, and this one as well. So our countdown, we're going to go to 500. I'm also going to take the ghost number, and I'm going to take this old ghost number and store that in there. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm actually going to change the color of it, and I need to know what the original color of the ghost was in order to switch it back after the countdown finishes. So this is the countdown while the ghost is going to be edible by the Pac-Man. And now I can set this ghost number, and I already know which number I need to set it at. I got to set it at 384 in order to be the blue ghost. And P.X. So I can move these out of the way so that there's no collisions with it. And so now when I go back out, when I eat the dot should disappear and the ghost should turn blue. So a bunch of things we still need to add in. I want the ghost actually to be flashing. I want the ghost to run away from me instead of come towards me. And then also we have to add in the collision detection with the ghost. So that's all coming up in the next lessons. And then of course we don't want this dot to appear while the countdown is still happening. So we want the dot to reappear after the countdown completes.